Hello students, welcome to KENE'S Educare, a group of KENE solutions. This is part 6 of lesson number 13, Why Do We Fall Ill? Right? So in this lesson, in the last part we discussed about the infectious diseases, about the non-infectious diseases. Then we discussed about the infectious agent as well, right? So now we are left with like organ and tissue manifestation. Then there is like uh, prevention and treatment that we need to discuss. And I guess then we will be ending up with the lesson, right? So make sure whatever we are like discussing in every part you're revising it, whatever notes you're taking you're revising that notes, because there is a reason why we are making our notes, right? So make sure whenever you're writing your notes, okay, you are writing it properly, because that is the one which is going to help you at the end for revision, because you can't set for listening the recording at the last moment, right? It's going to be like very difficult for you to cope up, right? Because you don't know which recording has which part, so you'll have to search for it and all. So while you are listening it for the first time, make sure you take a note of it so that you can revise it at the end. Okay, I don't want you all to waste any time, because when we are doing the revision, see, we are doing it for like I'm teaching you and I'm taking 7-8 parts for one lesson, almost like 8 hours, right? So you don't have to spend any other time apart from this. While you are learning, you have to make sure you're like understanding the concepts now itself, you're going through the answers as well, because whatever we are studying, we are going to ultimately write that in the answer part, right? So you should be knowing how to frame your own answers, you should be knowing how you have to exactly do it. Okay, so before I proceed with today's part, I want each one of you to please revise whatever notes you have taken in your book since part 1. Now part 1 was the basic part, like introduction to the lesson, why do we fall ill. So we had many like concepts that you should be knowing about. I actually gave you the definitions of all the terms, right? So please go through it, everyone. I hope every one of you are revising it. Now, like, I'm going to show you all the slides one by one, and I want each one of you to please go through it properly. I hope you all are going through this slide. After this, discussing about the significance of health, we discussed on the personal and the community issues, because both personal and community issue matter for health, right? The community where you are living, if it's not healthy, ultimately it's going to have an impact on your like on you as well, right? So I want each one of you to please go through this slide quickly. So after this personal and community issue, see, you have to revise it as such that you are able to write the answer for it, right? After discussing this personal and community issues, we discussed on the 5 F's, like what needs to be done. So we have discussed the 5 F's with respect to what hygiene should be followed and what should be the sanitization part, right? So I want you all to please go through it as well. I hope you all are going through it. See, you should be knowing the hygiene and sanitation now itself, okay? Like what kind of hygiene and sanitation program you're going to follow. You should be aware of that. I hope you all have gone through this. Then after this, we discussed on the distinction between being healthy and being disease free because they both are different, right? Like being healthy and being disease free, do you think like is that the same, or there's a difference between both? That there's a difference, right? So that has been explained over here on the screen, and I want you all to please go through it. I hope every one of you are going through this slide. After this, we discussed on like disease and its causes. So I want you all to please go through this, because here we studied about like what does disease exactly look like, right? So please go through it, everyone. See, you have to write these points. Like if I ask you, what does disease look like, you should be able to write it in your own now. Okay? After this, like what does disease exactly look like? Here we discussed on the signs and symptoms as well, right? So I want each one of you to please go through it quickly, everyone. After the signs and symptoms, we discussed on acute and chronic diseases. So I want each one of you to please go through it quickly. Now you know about this, like what are acute diseases and what are chronic one, right? Acute diseases are the one which last for a very short time, that is like common cold, okay? And chronic diseases are the one which last for a long time, right? And the example can be elephantiasis that has been given on screen, cancer, and remember one thing, that the chronic diseases can even last for the lifelong, like till the life exists, okay? After this acute and chronic diseases, we discussed on how chronic disease can lead to poor health, right? So I want y'all to please go through it once. After discussing on chronic diseases, how it can lead to poor health, we discussed on the causes of diseases where if you all remember, we discussed on the example of the same water given to the babies, but one of the baby started suffering from, you can say, from disease, from loose motion, right? But the other baby was not, because the other baby was healthy, because of which the immunity of that baby was strong enough to tackle that. Okay, but when it comes to, you can say, the other baby who developed, like who had loose motions after drinking that water, because the immunity power of that baby was weak, the baby suffered from it, right? So I want each one of you to please go through it, and like you can write the story about the causes of disease, whatever we have started, because here we found out the reasons, right? So there were three different reasons that we came up while discussing this, right? So I want each one of you to please go through this slide quickly, and you should be even knowing to explain it in your own words. Okay? So over here we have all the results which have been discussed. So I want you all to please go through it. I hope you all are going through all the three reasons which have been given. After this, we discussed about the infectious and the non-infectious causes. So I want you all to please go through it quickly. Then we discussed on these pictures, like you can see how smallpox, measles, herpes and swine flu looks like, right? Then we discussed on the infectious agent as well, where we saw that not only unicellular but multicellular like multicellular organisms can also cause some infection, right? Now after this we had few pictures of like leishmania and all, right? So here we have the first picture of the SARS virus, right? Then we have the second picture of the Phylococci, and the third picture is of Trypanosoma. Now you should be knowing which is a bacteria, which is a virus, and which is a protozoan. Okay, so SARS is a virus, Staphylococci is a bacteria, and Trypanosoma is a protozoan. I want you all to write this because you haven't wrote this in the last class, right? And here we have the picture of Leishmania, which is again a protozoan and roundworm. Okay, so I want you to add on to Leishmania as well under protozoan group. Then after this, now we are going to discuss about this viruses and all. So see, common example of disease which have been caused by a virus. Now when you get common cold, influenza, dengue fever, or AIDS, they are all been caused by viruses. So if you have been asked to write the examples of disease caused by viruses, you need to include this for common cold, influenza, dengue virus, and AIDS. Okay. Then when it comes to bacteria, we have disease like typhoid fever, cholera, tuberculosis, anthrax. They are all being caused by bacteria. Okay. Then many of you might have seen many of them suffer from skin infection, So that is because of different kinds of fungi. Whenever you might have seen people suffering from roundworms and like not roundworm, skin patches where they get different marks on skin. So that skin infections are mostly caused by fungi. Okay, then protozoan microbes cause some familiar diseases like malaria and kala azar, and all of you also come across intestinal worm infections as well as diseases like elephantiasis. They are being caused by different species of worms. Okay, so now you know, like here the example of diseases caused by viruses, bacteria, protozoans. They have mentioned the examples how they are exactly being caused, right? So the question is why it is important that we think of these categories of infectious agent. Why we need to find out that which infectious agent is causing the infectious disease. Is there any need for that? So the answer to this is that when you come to know the categories are going to help you in deciding like what kind of treatment you are going to use. Okay, so for that it plays an important role, because once you come to know the category, you can easily come up with the treatment, like what kind of treatment should be given, right? So members of each one of these groups, either it is virus, bacteria or anything, they have some biological characteristics in common. Now this lesson comes under biology. So remember, whenever you talk about viruses, bacteria, protozoa, they all have some biological characteristics which are common in all. And for example, viruses, they live inside the host cell, whereas bacteria, they rarely do. They don't go inside the, like they don't go and live inside the host cell. But viruses, if they are not going and living inside the host cell, they can't reproduce, because viruses need a host for reproduction, whereas bacteria do not. Okay, so taxonomically all bacteria are closely related to each other than to viruses and vice versa. Okay, so viruses, bacteria, fungi, they multiply very quickly, whereas worms multiply very slowly in comparison. Okay, if you compare worms and when you compare viruses, bacteria and fungi, you will find out that they all will multiply rapidly, but worms will take much time to get multiplied. So this means that many important life processes, they are similar in bacteria, but they are not being shared by the virus group. So they are similar, but you're not going to share it with the virus group. Okay, and as a result, drugs that block one of this life process in one member of group is likely to be effective against many other members of the group. So but the same drug will not work against a microbe belonging to a different group. Okay, now whenever you fall sick or you get any disease, you're going to take medicine. Okay, so that medicine has been considered as a drug. So whenever we are taking medicine, we studied that they multiply rapidly, they have some or the other biological characteristics in common. So if any harmful bacteria has entered your body, and if you're taking a medicine, is it like that that the whatever useful viruses and all you have in your body, they will also get killed? Do you think, is there any such case that the drug that you're taking, the medicine that you're taking, is not going to work against a microbe which belongs to a different group? So over here we have an example that they have given, that is of antibiotics. Okay, so we have an example of antibiotics explained over here. The commonly block, whenever you take any antibiotic, that antibiotic is going to block the biochemical pathways which are important for the bacteria, because antibiotics are mostly been taken for bacteria. So what they will do is they will block the pathway, the biochemical pathway, which is very important for bacteria to survive. Okay, so many bacteria, for example, like they will make a cell wall to protect themselves, and whenever you eat the medicine to destroy that bacteria, what that medicine is going to do, that medicine will break down the cell wall, and the bacteria won't be able to protect themselves in this case. So antibiotic penicillin, it blocks the bacterial processes that build the cell wall. So penicillin antibiotic is not going to allow the bacteria to build the cell wall. So if the cell wall is not built, the bacteria won't be able to protect themselves, and as a result, the growing bacteria it becomes unable to make the cell wall, and it can die easily. Okay, and we know that our human cells does not have any cell wall, right? So penicillin cannot have any effect on us, because the most important use of penicillin is to break the cell wall, or should not allow the bacteria to make that cell wall, right? And we human cells do not have that cell wall, so penicillin can't have any effect on our cell wall. So penicillin will have this effect on any bacteria that use such processes for making the cell wall, because cell wall is going to protect them, and if there is no cell wall, they can easily die. Okay, so similarly, many antibiotic work against many species of bacteria rather than simply working against one. So it's not that penicillin will work against one bacteria, it can act on other bacteria as well. For like if we have common cold, taking antibiotic does not reduce the severity or the duration of the disease. However, if we also get a bacterial infection along with viral cold, then taking antibiotic will help. Okay, you should have antibiotic is mostly been taken for bacterial infection, don't forget this. And even then antibiotic will only act against the bacteria part, not the viral infection. For viral infection you'll have to take other medicine, and that is why whenever the doctor prescribes you a medicine, there are 4 or 5 medicines altogether which has been prescribed, right? So there is a reason behind that as well. So now I want you all to write some of the parts from here, and then we'll be even moving on to the next part. I hope you all are writing all the important points from screen. I hope you all are writing all the important points from here. You can even write all the important points from this slide, everyone. I hope you all are writing all the important points from screen. Now, the means of spread, we will be starting with that in the next part, where we will be discussing on like how exactly the disease spread. So that we are going to study under this means of spread in detail. Then we'll discuss about the organ specific and tissue specific manifestation in detail. Okay, and after that we have the principle of treatment and principle of prevention to discuss. So both the principles are very important. We'll discuss about them. That is principle of treatment and principle of prevention in detail. And then we have the last topic for the lesson, that is immunization. So we will be discussing on this four different parts, and that is how we will be ending up with the whole lesson, that is why do we fall ill. Okay, but before ending with this, we have like summary discussion for the whole lesson, and we have six different questions to discuss on it. So this is how we will be discussing onto the summary part. Okay, where we have like what exactly we have learned, we will be discussing about that. And then at the end we have few exercise questions. I'm like showing you the questions on screen, and I want each one of you to please go through this. I hope you all are going through the question given on screen. So like altogether we have six questions that we will be discussing at the end of the lesson. And this is the last question that we have to discuss at the end of the lesson. So make sure you are understanding the lesson properly and you're able to write the answers in your own words. Now you know that which is the one, like which are the questions that we have to attempt. So make sure you are able to write the answers on them, okay, uh, clearly, and it should be correct as well at the same time. So this is how we will be ending up with this lesson, why do we fall ill. And I hope every one of you have understood whatever we discussed today, like how exactly you can say bacteria is causing diseases in us, bacteria, protozoa, viruses, they are causing diseases in us, right? So now I will be starting with the rest of the part that we are left with, that is means of spread of disease. Then we have prevention of principle of prevention and principle of treatment to discuss, and at the end we have immunization. So we are just left with this topic and exercise, so maybe we'll be completing the lesson soon. So make sure that you all are revising it, okay? So I'll end up with this part over here and I'll be continuing the rest of the lesson in the next part. Thank you everyone.